So,
Yeah.
So how old were you when you knew who your father was? And like, how did that, like, as a young child, did you just think your mom was a single mom, or?
Yeah, I look back and I'm like, why did that make sense to me? But like,
You didn't know any different?
right, and they were lying to me. They were so afraid of getting prosecuted for living polygamy that I didn't even have my dad on my birth certificate.
Oh, wow.
I have a fake name on my birth certificate. Yeah, Kyle Grant. I don't know a Kyle Grant. Do you guys?
No.
Is that my dad?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like that book, like, are you my mother? Are you my father? Are
They
you my
start,
mother?
they start pulling names from the FLDS.
They found a Kyle Grant and they demanded child support, and he was like, I don't have 10 kids. What are you talking about?
Oh my
But
gosh.
a lot of the women do that to like protect the husband. I really think it goes deeper than them being afraid of being prosecuted. I think they don't want to pay child support. They don't
Okay.
want to be held responsible for all these kids.
So they convince the women to, oh, it's just for our religious safety, but
Yeah.
really it's
I think
money.
There's
goes
always
further,
more to
for
the
sure.
picture than you
And
realize.
then my mom can get food stamps, and now they all can
Oh, yeah.
get this free money, right? And so, yeah, I didn't know he was my dad. I would call him Burl, that's his first name. And I remember a memory of asking him, I would be like, are you my dad? Because I remember he was buckling me in my car seat. That's how young I was. And he
Wow.
flat out was like, no. And I could tell it hurt my mom's feelings. And after a while, because then the first wife's family, not to like shade the first wife at all, because I understand like having to share your husband with your younger sister, whatever. Their kids would kind of, like if I ever tried to say that he was my dad, they would like correct it, be like, he's not your dad.
Oh, wow.
And so I had this like
gosh.
internal like, who is my father? Because I got to see them having a dad, right?
Well, and so
Yeah.
you would actually physically see your father.
I would see him every other night. And so I was like, but he's not my dad, but he comes over here every other night. This is before he had the third wife. And so
Gosh.
finally my mom was like, Burl, they're calling you father. And he was like, okay.
Wow.
So finally she was like, yes, that's your dad. And we're like,
So how old were you? Do you
I
remember?
know that when he baptized me, I knew he was my dad. So
Okay,
8 years
so
old.
you would have been 8 or younger, 7 or 8 when you found out.
That is
But
a
I remember being
confusing
upset. Yeah,
situation.
like why did they lie to me? Like, and
Hey,
then,
at least it didn't go on until you were 18 or something.
Right,
You know?
it's
I mean,
true.
because
You would have caught on before then. There's no way that.
I know,
You're
but I
like-
didn't know about the third wife though. That was a secret too. Like everything was big secrets. Plus, my mom was so ashamed. I found out because we were all at Willard Bay. The first, second, third wife. I didn't know the third wife was married though. And we were all playing in the water, and one of my best friends at the time had pointed to my half brother from the third wife and was like, "That's your brother." And I was like, "No, it's not. Like, ew, that's not my brother." And then I saw how my dad was acting with his mom, and I
Oh,
was
okay.
like, "Oh my gosh."
So they didn't tell you
No.
like the other wives don't like attend the next wedding or anything.
They're supposed to.
Okay.
And I think my mom, I don't know if she attended. She was so upset about it, but they're supposed to attend and like give permission. That's
Wow.
what the teaching, the like true teachings are, is that like a lot of them will even have like the hands on top of each other when they do the ceremony.
Oh, really?
Do they believe in the Doctrine and Covenants?
Dr. Comes 132.
132. I was gonna
Yeah.
say, I'm like, well, it is right in there, so that makes
Seriously,
sense.
I'm sure if they were allowed to get tattoos, they all would have that tattoo on. Like they're, I don't know. Crazy
oh my
though.
gosh.
So
Okay, so then you're
interesting.
finding out that you have siblings and there's another wife, but you just didn't.
So I feel like from a young age, I kind of was like, why do they keep lying or like hiding things from me?
Yeah.
It felt really weird.
Oh my
Huh.
gosh.
As a young person, that would be frustrating to not know the truth. I never went through that for sure, but I can imagine how tough it would be.
I feel like FLDS was very much more like all about family, all about like harmony, living together.
Yep.
Not to say that there weren't families like that in our group, but it was a lot of competition, a lot of like, there was even teachings that like if you're having bad things happen in your life, it's because God's punishing you type thing. So if
Well,
someone
we've
was,
all
like,
heard that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it was like, oh, well, you deserve to be going through this. I'm not going to help you. Kind of, I don't know. At least for
Okay.
my childhood, it was like a lot of like negativity for
Yeah,
sure.
I guess it was a little more
goodness.
positive than that. If it's a challenge, they would say
It's a
this
trial.
this is from God, but it's a trial, so you can prove that you are going to follow Him. Kind of like Job from the Bible.
Right.
That was.
I hated that story.
that
They would
was-
bring that up all the time.
That was
Yes.
kind of that's my father just recently, well, not super recently, but not too long ago, said that to me, that all the trials he's going through with being separated from family and all of that, he looks at it as, hey, I haven't suffered as much as Job. And I'm gonna prove to be strong. So yeah, that's kind of the
Such a sad life, like
it's kind of the mentality though.
It is really sad.
Oh man.
My mom definitely thinks that way. 100%. She'll be like, I'm gonna be in a high degree of glory in the end of my, for all eternity because of everything I've had to go through. I'm like,
it's gonna be so interesting when everyone gets
to the other side.
The surprise or disappointment or whatever the case may be. It's going to be an interesting a reunion or whatever you want to call it.
So you said you got baptized at 8, which is similar to the LDS. Mm-hmm. What did the rest of church look like? Like, did you have sacrament meeting?
We didn't have sacrament. They're doing it now, though. I just had a order member tell me that they actually have sacrament now.
So now that you moved out, everyone else is worthy enough to...
I guess. And also when I moved out, they put like fences up at the church. And I was like, is this because of me? Yeah. Don't let her back in here. But we had, obviously every Sunday was church, and the weekends was the dances, which is when you're allowed to dance with the opposite gender. And then kind of like young people's, and then same thing like Thanksgiving and Christmas. They did these big things where you would go to the church, which is the warehouse, and they would have like Santa Claus. You would sit on Santa Claus' lap. Everyone get an orange and some, I don't know why, but it was orange and peanuts. But
I've never heard about the peanuts, but I know oranges are very common.
Oranges are a very common thing, but peanuts, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, and maybe it was just cheap to be able to get like stockings for all the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But they would do, and that's kind of part of what I missed about the community was being able to every year go and be with everyone.
Yes.
And not in a religious way. It was like in a
celebration.
Happy. I mean, of course, there was still like the religious, like they would do plays for Christmas showing like when Christ came to earth and stuff like that. But like we also did baseball. Like we had. So first it was just men getting to go do their baseball things, and then the girls were like, we want to play.
Yep.
So then we got to have our teams, and I was like, I loved it. And then we also had like chess tournaments for a while, so it was kind of
had a lot of community events.
Oh yeah. So when I left, I was like, can I still go to the baseball game? I didn't have a community anymore. I couldn't.
No, that's tough, and that's one good thing about these groups and religions is the fact that there is so much community and people there for each other.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Yeah. So as you were growing up, we get this question. Our viewers ask a lot about, obviously, a girl's experience in a polygamous group is going to be way different than a boy's experience. But like growing up as a young woman, like what were you taught about like your body or like periods and?
Oh yeah. I wish. So they had a private school, and I was actually taken out at the years that they teach you about your period. So they did have this, like, my sister told me kind of about it, where the first wife in my family taught it, and she would like give everyone these little bags of pads, and it was kind of a weird topic, and they kind of acted like it was a secret, so they wouldn't ever talk about it, and I hadn't known about it. My sister didn't tell me about it. My mom didn't give me the conversation because at this time I was in homeschool. I had a bike accident the day before I started my period. And I had hit really hard right there. And so I thought I was bleeding out the next day. I literally thought I was dying. And I was too embarrassed at the area that I was like, I would rather die than talk about this. So I was just like waiting for like if I was gonna die or if it was gonna heal.
So you didn't talk to anyone?
No. And then my sister had seen like bloody tissues in the bathroom, and she was like, are you on your period? And I was like, Cammy, I think I'm dying. And so she was really good about it though. She was like, here, this is the pad, like this is how you use it. But that's how I learned and then years later I got mad at my mom because I was like, why wouldn't you tell me that? Yeah. And she was it was uncomfortable for her. Even like talking about where babies come from. I remember my little brother, the one that has a lot of respect for my dad. We were all sitting outside one day. My mom would sit on her porch swing, and he was like, Mom, where do babies come from? And she got so uncomfortable and was like, they come from the birth canal. And he was
factual.
Like, what? She's like, it's not a lie. But they were it's funny how uncomfortable they would get about that stuff, yet how, like, I don't want to say too much detail, but how like sexual they got after marriage, like how definitely in the Kingston
to have that many kids.
And like there was a lot of other weird stuff that the men would expect the women to do in the bedroom and stuff like that. So it's like, why was it like before marriage? You literally know nothing about sex, and like hopefully you can know about periods. and then you get married, and then you're just supposed to know about all of that.
So they don't teach you about sex either?
That's what I was gonna say.
No, there's no, at least when I was going there was no course on it. There was no, I remember going to bridal showers for like my 15, 16-year-old friends, and there was they would ask questions that I knew and they didn't know, and they were getting married the next day. And I would be like, no one has told you, like, do you even know how to get pregnant? Like,
Yeah.
I saw that in my community too.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, it was the same way. No one talked about anything. I never heard one single word about sex or any of that type of topic from any of my parents.
It's
So all you knew is you
taboo.
just not allowed to have it, not allowed to talk about it, not allowed to do it.
No one would talk about it. And then I had heard this story. I don't know how true this is, but I heard a few stories like this, so I assume they're kind of true. There was this couple that got married, and they were having a hard time getting pregnant, and they realized it's because the man did not know how to have sex. He literally didn't know.
Yeah, he had
I had the exact. I knew of someone
Their
that had the
group.
exact same.
So
Yeah.
it's pretty, and when they're so young too,
Yeah.
they have no clue.
They were told God would just give them a baby. Like, well, once you're married, then God gives you a baby.
and you're
Yeah.
like, okay, well, where is it?
Yeah, I know.
exactly. Like,
Wow.
knowing how to be
Yeah.
able
Can you
to.
imagine how discouraging that would be after a couple of years of not having a child? You're like, what's wrong with us?
Yeah.
We're not worthy or
'Cause
something.
You just don't know how to have a baby.
Oh my goodness.
And to think that someone could be married and together that long without naturally figuring, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
like not even natural exploration,
Yeah.
like of any kind.
I wonder, like, I mean, I never talked to that couple about it, but like knowing the guy who was my cousin, I was like, I mean, it seems like he's like so kind of like robot to whatever they
To
tell
the
him
rules
to do.
and all that, yeah.
If
Okay.
someone didn't instruct him to do that, then it
it's
wouldn't be
almost-
done.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
almost like that's how they live their life. Like, do I have permission to do this? Okay, like I don't know. They're comfortable with that.
So were the marriages arranged?
I 100% think that they are, but if you ask different members, they'll say, oh, well, I had direction or whatever, but a lot of the times, even with my sister, she had direction on the guy that she was marrying, but it was like this choice or this married man, or, you know, so yeah, you have kind of a choice, but they kind of give you no choice, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
They
no,
give
they
you
give
two
you two
options,
options.
and it's pretty obvious which one you're going to choose,
Right.
typically. Okay.
Did you date? Or were you allowed
no,
to date?
you're not allowed to date.
Okay.
You can date when you're engaged. This is what they always would say. You can date when you're married. You can get to know them when you're married. And it's like, well, that's when it's too late. But yeah, so the no dating. If there were some that were betrothed, I think that's the closest to dating. The only reason they were betrothed is because they were so young that they couldn't get married. So they were allowed to hold hands. There was like more strict rules though with the betrothals because they were technically not engaged.
Yeah.
But no, dating is not allowed, even if you're like caught pairing off with each other. And like I had snuck around with guys like dating in my own way, and they did everything they could to like
To
avoid
break it
that.
up and all that.
Like
Oh,
he
yeah.
would come into my work and like maybe try to drop off an ice cream. They would watch and they would come out and like tell him to leave. Like that's how strict it was.
Oh my gosh. Now, who did the
Wow.
who betrothed people? Was it your leader? Because I know you call him the leader, not a prophet, right?
Yeah. So the leader, Paul, at least when I was growing up there, no marriages were allowed to happen without his consent. Like he had to sign off on it
Yep.
basically. So when my sister did want to marry the guy that she ended up marrying, it took a while because I don't think he wanted my sister to marry his son. I think that was the issue. So it took a while, and she had to fight really hard. So, but eventually she was able to marry him because I feel like they knew that she probably would leave if she didn't
Right.
get to.
So it was a.
So sometimes people could ask that, like, oh, I want to marry that person, but for the most part, it was kind of just given.
Oh yeah, like for me, who I wanted to marry, my dad flat out was like, I know you're not supposed to marry him, and so it really just depends. And like they were having me go on, like an outsider would call it a date probably, but like really it's just like going to dinner and then telling your direction. But they would have me doing that with my cousins, even though I had expressed I wanted to marry someone else.
So would your cousins each tell you that they had direction, that they were supposed to marry you?
That's what I was just gonna say. I'm like, who gets direction? Was it like everyone had personal direction,
Yeah.
or
That's something that is, I don't know where that comes from, but they believe that if you're supposed to marry someone, basically God will tell you, your parents, and the leader. So you can tell your parents your direction, but sometimes your direction's not enough, you know?
that's? I mean, well, in the LDS church they
That's-
call it personal revelation, but you get revelation, and a lot of couples. I mean, you people will say, okay, well, I felt like I was dating this person. I mean, because they can date in LDS, but they date someone, and then a lot of people will go and pray specifically to make sure they get an answer and that they get personal revelation that they are supposed to get married. And there's lots of stories in the LDS where someone went and like asked for revelation of whether or not they were supposed to get married, and were told like no, and they would just like break up.
Really?
Even if they had been
Even
dating
if it
and
was
were in
going
love
well.
with them, even if everything was going well, like they would break up if they had the personal revelation that they weren't supposed to. And same with, I mean, now girls now in the LDS church, I don't think are as like vulnerable to this, but I've heard lots of stories too of like guys being like, I felt really impressed that I was supposed to marry you, and now girls are like, no, and they'll back off.
That's
but like,
fine.
Some
but
still
it's
fall for it, though.
But some still fall for it, or and it's something that, you know, obviously if someone's coming to you and saying like, well, God told me that this is supposed to happen, and you're super religious and believe that God's telling, that he's talking to them, then it's going to be like an interesting mental gymnastics there.
But with us, it was like you weren't allowed to go on this date unless it was approved by everyone, and that's what they are basically going to be telling you. So every time they're going to say, well, I brought you here today because I had a dream.
So you knew it was coming every time.
Yeah, I definitely knew it was coming. Even though I didn't want to be on that date, my dad like set it up and made it happen. But I didn't know that happened in the LDS where they had to run it by the
They don't have to. So they don't ever have to run it by the prophet. It's like a personal thing with God that they'll go and pray about it to make sure that it's the right choice.
They call it personal
revelation.
Okay, yeah.
So when you were saying like direction, I was like, oh my gosh, that sounds just like personal revelation.
Yeah,
of like,
I think it's the same.
Yeah,
Just
it's the same, except for when you have personal revelation, you don't have to take it to a higher up. It's more of like, oh, okay, I can confirm that own choice with my own personal revelation.
Yeah.
Right. And then in the FLDS, you didn't get any of that.
Didn't get any. It was all from the uppers.
It was all of a sudden God has spoken, and the prophet would tell you who you're supposed to marry.
Wow.
And that was that. That was final.
Did you guys believe though in having your own revelations in anything?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes,
That's
for your personal life and your family and all that.
But
Once you're married, but no, marriage was above your head.
That and when you're married in LDS too, like Sam was a patriarch of the home, so he basically we're told, like even in the temple, like in our ceiling, like he will receive personal revelation for our family.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the burden of like the tough decisions, like to be prayed about and have any kind of inspiration from God,
fell on him.
Not that I couldn't receive it, but it was something that the church kind of overall talks about, how the man is the patriarch of the family and that they will receive revelation for the family.
Was that similar in the Kingston group, or was man had more power?
Mm-hmm. They would say the man of the house.
Okay.
Type of thing, or and so the whole numbered man thing too even just fed into that they are the ones that have these, because women aren't really allowed to have a number. But my mom, it's so weird when they try to explain it, because the women got mad. They're like, how come we can't have a number? Mm-hmm. My dad's number is 36. What they explained to me was the first wife is 361. The second wife, my mom, would be 362.
Okay.
It's like, that doesn't make sense though, because eventually there's gonna be someone who has the number 361 and 3, you know?
Yeah.
So it didn't make any sense, but I think that was just their way of being like, oh yeah, the
like
women have some.
The wives get attached to the husband,
Yeah.
right? Like they get to ride on the tailcoats to heaven, basically.
But they 100%, my mom believed that if she's married to a worthy, God-fearing man or whatever, that he brings the rest of the family up with him.
That's
very common. And for people who didn't see the last video, what is a numbered man?
Oh yeah. It's so confusing to even me sometimes, because I didn't know why. It just was the way that it was. Mm-hmm. But when you earn your number in the order, that's like, you at the time when I was younger, you had to have 3 wives, because that's what they believed in getting to the celestial kingdom. You have to have at least 3 wives. And then you have to.
That's where that came from your group. Okay.
Yeah. Your group.
I don't know where it started, but 3 wives to get in the celestial kingdom, and then you have to be basically worthy, consecrating everything into the order and signing your 10% forms, like doing everything that they believe that you should be doing, and then you'll be awarded a number. Sometimes you won't get one because they're still like thinking that you should be doing more, or you're not worthy or whatever.
Giving them more money.
So the number means what?
They didn't teach me this. I didn't learn this till after I had left, but the number was kind of like a ticket system to heaven.
Ticket to heaven, okay.
Mm-hmm. And like some people had referred to the Bible. This was like older people that had left the group, so this is why I trust it, because this is what it originated from, is that the 144,000. I think we talked about this in the last video.
Yeah.
that there's somewhere in the Bible that talks about the God's chosen people being 144,000, and the order believes that they're numbering each one with these tickets.
Oh, that's
The
your
Jehovah's
number, okay.
Witnesses believe in
Something
that.
similar to
Like
that, yeah.
144.
Yeah, what
Yeah.
they did originally. So
Yeah. They don't teach it now. It's kind of like a secret. You have to dig to figure that out, but that's where the original numbering came from.
So when you're talking about numbered men, basically, it's like the high men that have their ticket to heaven.
Yeah, the numbered men are basically, I feel like it's similar to like bishops, maybe? I don't know.
There's actually within the LDS, I mean, they
Yeah,
have.
the bishops are just kind of assigned, but it's only bishops are only temporary.
Okay.
Bishops have a temporary calling for, I believe it's 5 years, where they look over a ward or a stake,
Okay.
which is a group of people, a certain boundary, and that's kind of their assignment to make sure that
Okay.
I think
group
it's
is taken
the
care of.
most similar thing I would say, and there's some LDS people who might not even know about this, but would be like the second anointings.
Oh,
Okay.
So in the LDS church, when they get to a certain, like, normally
Yeah.
it's just like apostles or like very high 70s, like it'd be very, 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 very high in the church. They have what's called a second
Okay.
anointing,
Okay.
and
basically-
they go to the temple and they're guaranteed
a place in
a
heaven.
place in heaven.
Wow.
And they
Okay.
don't, as far as I know, they don't number them like what you're
But
describing, but it guarantees them.
It's basically
like-
you have proven yourself on this earth. You're set.
Wow. So it's,
Yeah.
it's kind of like, I feel like it's a way to separate them even more, but it's, yeah, definitely the numbered men are on a higher pedestal, and they even do, so there's always a numbered man fasting, always. So they'll go through the number in order. So number 1 has to fast, and then number 2, and then number 3. Well, they're all dead right now, but but my dad on the 36th day would fast the entire day,
Oh.
and then the number 37 would fast. Like, someone is always fasting for the order.
That's
so they use
So with
it
that-
for other
Interesting.
things.
With that
Yeah.
many people, how often would that be?
That my dad would fast?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he would fast, from what I remember, once a year, but we still were all fasting on Fast Thursdays once a month.
Oh, so you do?
So,
okay.
mhm. So even me as a young, I remember being like 9 years old, and they wouldn't force me to fast, but my dad would really guilt me into
Mm-hmm.
fasting 24 hours.
And was it just, do you say one day a month? The first Thursday?
The first Thursday of every month.
In the LDS, it's the first Sunday of every month.
When I found that out after I left,
Yeah.
I was like, we just copied that.
I
That's
know.
literally all we did.
Well,
But-
fasting is a very common, popular thing amongst religions.
Yeah.
I did it too growing up. I remember sneaking food and feeling like I was going to be struck by lightning or something. But
Yep.
yeah, but it's just a common thing that I guess it's a way to get people to think harder about what they believe and try
it
to.
was definitely a way to punish people too. Like, there were some girls that would get caught sneaking out with boys or hanging around outsiders, and they would some of the times force them to do 3-day fasts to like get them to think about what you're saying,
Mm-hmm.
get them to think about what they've done and like repent and feel sorry.
Yep.
So I definitely
Interesting.
haven't fasted since.
Okay. What would you consider like some of the most odd rules when you were growing up?
That was probably an odd one.
I was like that's kind of,
Yeah.
the fasting
It leads
is definitely a
into it.
really odd one. But I was thinking about
There's
that.
probably a lot that you'll think of later too. It's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember all of them. But can you think of any specific thing right off the top of your head where you're just like, man, everyone would think this was crazy?
Definitely comfrey.
Comfrey.
Comfrey is a plant it grows, not a lot of people know about it, but it's it just looks like a dark green leaf.
I've
and
heard
it's
of
kind
it.
of fuzzy.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, we had that.
You did? Did you
Yes.
drink it?
We planted it.
Okay.
And I don't
They
remember.
sold it to you guys. No, I'm just kidding.
we had it all the
I
time.
am almost positive that we would like eat it in some form. I don't remember how.
What? Okay, so from what I had researched after I had left, people out here use it as a tea or as like medicinal for their skin.
That's medicine. It was
Yeah.
for skin. That's what it was
Okay,
for.
that's the correct way to use it.
Okay.
So that's good. Good job.
Okay,
Good
yeah,
job.
We're doing it right.
The leader, the like original leader, had this premonition from God that comfrey was this like fountain of youth that we should be drinking every day. And they even talk about the story that there was a Native American that told them not to drink it and not to eat it, and that it could be poisonous. They talked about that in church, and they would be like, the Native American didn't know. And we knew because God showed us. So we were drinking comfrey every day, sometimes twice a day, sometimes my dad would drink it sometimes 3 times a day. And come to find out, after I had left and I had done a bunch of research and stopped drinking it, it causes rapid cell growth, which means also rapid cancer cell growth. And
Oh my
the
gosh.
leader before Paul died of cancer, my grandma died of cancer.
Ugh.
at young ages too. And so it's like,
Little did that Native American know.
yeah, he was right. And so now it's coming out, and I've told this on my story multiple times, like, because I know older people watch, and I'm like, don't drink the comfrey.
Wow.
Like,
So-
who knows if part of me thinks that they kind of taught that to like get rid of the older people that are a nuisance, but that's just probably my mind going places. But yeah, drinking comfrey every
Yes.
single day, to the point where sometimes people would bring it into the schools when there was testing days to like help your brain activity.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I
Wow.
never even heard of comfrey.
I've heard of it. I've definitely heard of it. I remember it's a pretty. Is it what size are the leaves?
It can go from like short to like pretty big.
Big leaves,
Yeah.
right? And they're a little bit fuzzy.
Yep.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. We used it for putting on the skin and sores and that type of
Did
thing.
it really help? We had never used it for
I don't remember if it helped or not. My mother is and was very into natural oils and that type of thing, and so of course I would have learned it from her.
Yeah.
She was like our own little doctor, you know. Whenever
Yeah.
I broke my face open or something, she would
Yeah.
just, I got you. And
Make
then-
some little-
yeah, exactly. Make something up and fix it.
Wow.
So-
That's cool.
But yeah, I've heard of it.
Wow. Well,
It's
that
weird,
definitely tastes
right?
like it. Yeah, that's definitely an odd rule.
Yeah, we had like other stuff which I don't think was as weird. Like we would eat eggshells, and I honestly think that those were good for me. Maybe it's in my brain, but like it would strengthen our teeth. That was another thing that like God revealed to, because the leader was like in the army for a while, and he noticed everyone was having like really unhealthy teeth, and so he was like shown to eat the eggshells that they had, and so he would just eat them all the time. And I did all the time. Like my adopted sister, she came over one time and she saw us trying out a bunch of eggshells, and I was dumb. I thought that the whole world believed in eggshells. So she was like,
Not
why are
this
you
guy.
trying these out? Yeah. She's like, why are you
Oh
trying these
my
out? I
goodness.
grabbed an eggshell and I ate it in front of her, and she like started laughing thinking I was joking, and I was like, you guys don't eat eggshells?
What does an eggshell taste like?
It's like, I feel like it's calcium. It's probably like if you were to take a calcium pill and chew it.
But
Okay.
it's the texture.
The texture
when
is
I
like
accidentally have an eggshell in my egg when I cook it, I'm like,
Yeah.
ugh.
No, a lot of people are like that.
Yeah.
So my mom would take this coffee bean grinder and she would grind them down to like a dust.
Okay.
And like sometimes put it in like pill form.
Capsules?
Yeah.
Oh,
they,
wow.
they were like very religious with it, having it all the
I
time.
mean, in a capsule, that'd be a lot better for taking, I guess. but-
easier. For
Yeesh.
sure.
Okay,
Yeah,
well,
there's
that's also very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, asking. We received some good ones. That's crazy.
all to do with weird foods.
Yeah.
All right, so just a couple more questions to wrap it up here really fast.
Yeah. So one is, when did you kind of know that you were going to be leaving?
When did I realize?
Yeah.
Probably when they made me eat the eggshells. Just kidding.
I'm out.
When I was like 14, when I was 14, I knew that I was gonna leave. I didn't know how though, but it was when the whole like talk of sharing your husband, that was the biggest thing. And watching my mom, I would watch my mom cry all the time, like watching my dad leave, and she knew he was going to the other wife's house, and knowing that that was going to be my life. Like, I would rather take the leap on the outside, not knowing in this scary outside world, than knowing what my life was going to be like.
So polygamy.
Polygamy,
That makes
and
sense.
then definitely how they had so much control over my money,
Oh.
and there was no freedom in that. Those are the two main things. I really had hopes that my family would have stayed in my life too. I think that helped because I really thought my family was different.
Yeah.
If I would have known my family was going to disown me the way that they did, I probably would have stayed longer, probably. But I was like running away, like from the ages of 14 to 17, I was running away like all the time. Because I didn't want to. Just like that too, they were having me go on dates with my cousin. Like, it was just weird
So
stuff that I didn't want to do.
What's running away? What does that mean?
And yeah, where would you go?
It started off little, like running to the neighbor's house, right?
Okay.
And then it started to get to like going to a different state. Like, I had this boy that I wanted to marry in the group who we ran away to his brother's house, who his brother had left.
Okay.
And we went all the way to Idaho, and I talked to his brother. This was the
Wow.
first time talking to someone who had left the group and hearing their side, and they were LDS. And it was a very like innocent runaway, but they kind of played it, my family played it off as like very rebellious, terrible teenager. They called the police. They got a restraining order on the boy who was my age. He was 15. And
Wow.
that boy ended up leaving after that, and I like lost touch with him, and like I like was like, one day I'll leave, one day I'll leave. But yeah, like there was a lot of weird runaways, but finally the last one stuck, which was when I was 17, and I ended up eventually living with my adopted family at that time.
Oh, okay.
And
So, yeah.
how did you get in contact, or how did you find your adopted family?
I had met the daughter so I was able to go to public school for 2 years. That was it. And I met the daughter, like literally the first day that we had met in junior high, we became like best friends.
Aww.
And the mom, when she met me, she told me this when I started living with them. She was like, I don't know what it was about you when I met you, but I knew that we were going to be in your life for a long time. And like it was like right when she had met me, she knew that something was like different about me. But so like we didn't like lose touch when I moved, but she kind of was like able to come over. My dad didn't like the relationship, so my mom thought that my adopted sister was, let's just call her Tessa, that's her name. My mom thought that Tessa was a really good influence on me, and she really liked Tessa's family, and she also, again, came from an outside group at one point, my mom did, so she understood that.
Well,
Yeah.
So she would support me having a relationship with Tessa when my dad was gone.
Okay.
So we would kind of keep it a secret from my dad, so we kept our friendship over the years, and then when I left, they had heard everything. She didn't know I was a polygamist at first.
Oh, wow.
And then when they had found out, that I was on my own, like trying to get a job and survive, they were like, come stay with us.
Okay. So
it
how
was-
old were you when you officially said, I'm done, and you went and stayed with them?
I was 17. It was almost exactly a month before my 18th
Okay.
birthday. Yeah.
Did your
that was
family
when
try
I
to
was
get you
out.
back at that point, or did they understand, okay, she's done with this?
I think, so them trying to get me back was telling me that I needed to apologize. So that was their version of trying to get me back, and I was like, I will not apologize.
You're like, this is not the right way to get me back.
Yeah, but
And
so I think if I would have apologized, they would be like welcoming me with open arms. But because I had caused such a ruckus or a riot between the numbered men, because that's how I left, was like my mom says I went out with a bang. So they were like, you need to apologize, and when they realized that I was like not down for that, then they didn't want to fight anymore to keep me, because then it would make them look bad.
Right.
You know.
Right.
So they
So
finally let me
now
go.
if you're gone, they can say whatever they want about you and blame it all on you. And
Oh yeah, and they did. They definitely did, because I wasn't there to defend
well,
myself.
and obviously there's
Yeah.
too much information to talk about right now, but there were a lot of incidences and things that happened that led you up to wanting to officially say,
Oh yeah,
I'm out.
definitely. But I think the number one thing was I could not wrap my brain around polygamy.
Yeah.
Having to share someone that I was in love with someone else.
Yeah.
You know.
That makes sense. I can understand that.
Yeah. Yep,
I
definitely.
can all get that. Awesome. Well, I kind of like what you did, what you did on
Asking
your
a
channel,
question?
asking a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, the positive note. So if they, Amanda just did this. We did a video for her channel as well, and I really like it. So now we're gonna ask you if you were to share something with someone who's still in the Kingston group or any polygamous group. What would you say?
No one has asked me that. That's funny, because I've asked this to almost every person I interview. I asked that, but no one's asked me that. So to think of what I would say, I think if they were to actually take it in and listen, and it was someone from the order, I would definitely say like question everything. Question everything until it makes sense. Don't take someone else's faith and try to write off of their faith.
Yep. It's all
Find your own
personal.
standing. Definitely, because a lot of times they would teach, oh, you can have your testimony off of your parents. No, have your own testimony and question until you find that.
I like that. I like that a lot. Well, thanks so much.
Yes,
we'll
thanks for having me.
We'll definitely be doing more videos together. We're gonna.
Yep.
Yeah, we're not going anywhere. I think the three of us, we gotta just keep up doing videos.
It's been
It's way
great,
too much
yeah. The support and the fun and the similarities, yet the differences. It's interesting to learn about.
It really
So,
is, and I feel like everyone likes to hear about it, so might
Yeah.
as well keep continuing.
Yep, exactly.
Well, thank you all for being here. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.